Hi guys, good afternoon. Today we're going to be doing some lessons, both lesson 6 and lesson 7 today. We're combining them together for math today because we are only doing little parts of each one. And these lessons actually today are introducing multiplication. And I know some of you have been asking me all year about when we're going to learn how to multiply. And here we are, we're starting it. So we're going to learn some just introductory stuff for multiplication today. We're not going to sit here and memorize that 2 times 2 is 4. By the way, 2 times 2 is 4. But we are going to learn how multiplication works and what that looks like. And we're going to start by learning how to make an array. An array is when we take a shape and we put the same, like we put them all in a row across the top of something and all in a row down, and then we fill in all of the area of a shape with the same shape over and over and over again. And we call that an array, and that actually helps us to have a picture of what multiplication is. Because if I have 4 squares going down, 4 columns of squares going down, and 4 columns of squares going across, if I added all the squares in the whole rectangle, if the rectangle is covered, or the square is covered in little squares, then I would be able to figure out by multiplying how many squares total there are in that shape. So we're going to look at doing some of that today. Before we get started with that, we have a warm-up to do. So go ahead and make sure you have your scrap paper or whiteboard or whatever you need to do the warm-up. And once you have those materials, get yourself ready. You also are going to need a 1-inch square today, and I'm going to show you later in the video how to make this 1-inch square. So don't worry, you can pause the video at that time and make it. But if you've already got it ready, then you don't have to pause the video in the middle to do that. So here is another material that you're going to need. So pencil, whiteboard, scrap paper, marker, if you've got a whiteboard, your math journal you're going to need, and also a 1-inch square. I used my measuring tape to go ahead and make that. You can use anything. You can estimate. For me, a 1-inch, if I was estimating, is from my first knuckle to the end of my finger. Your fingers might be a little bit shorter, but maybe your parents can go ahead and make you an estimated 1-inch square. It does not have to be perfect. So 1-inch by 1-inch square, if you can do that. Go ahead and pause the video. Get ready for your warm-up. Hello. For today's math lesson, you will need some scrap paper or a whiteboard like this one. You are going to need to draw 8 hundreds, tens, and ones place value charts. So I only drew 1. You need to draw 8 of these. They don't need to be in a box, but I wanted to separate them out. So we need 8 hundreds, tens, and ones boxes. Go ahead, or charts. So go ahead and pause the video until you have drawn 8 of these. Okay, so hopefully by now you have drawn at least 8 of these boxes. I drew 4 for right now because I'm going to do 4 problems with you, and then I'm going to give you 4 problems to practice on your own. So that's why I only have 4, because the other 4 problems you're going to do by yourself. So let's start by looking at number 1. Number 1 says 4 hundreds, 10 tens, and 2 ones. So I need to use my place value chart. I'm just going to label this one number 1. And I want to have 4 hundreds, 10 tens, and 2 ones. Now, it's best if we always start in the ones. So when I look at the ones, I only see 2. So that's good because I don't have to regroup or do anything there. Okay, so I've got 2 there. Now, here it says 10 tens. And I want to remind you that we cannot put 2 digits in each place. We can only put 1 number in each place. So I can't put 10 there. So I've got to take one of those tens away, and I've got to make it 9 tens, and then, sorry, never mind, that was wrong. I've got to take those tens actually, because there's 10 of them, and I've actually got to regroup them, and they're going to go up here into the hundreds. So if 10 tens equals 100, then I know that this isn't 400, it's actually going to be 500. So I'm going to put, now that I've made this 500, do I have any tens? No, I don't. So I need to put my placeholder 0 there. And then right here in the hundreds place, I'm going to put a 5. So the number I get for number 1 is 502. 502. So that is how we're going to solve those. Let's look at number 2. So number 2 says 8 hundreds and 10 tens. I don't see any ones here. So we actually, if there's no ones, what do we put? We put a 0. So I'm going to put a 0 in the ones place. And then it says 10 tens. We have the same problem that we had before. We cannot put 2 digits in the tens place. So if I've got 10 tens, what does that equal? It equals another 100. So this is actually 900. And I have my placeholder 0. And my total is 9. And then that number means that it is 900. So if we read that number across, it's 900. Let's solve number 3. So number 3 says 10 tens, read it with me, 10 tens, 7 hundreds, 9 ones. Again, we want to start in the ones place. So 9 ones, 9 is a single digit, so I'm good there. So for number 3, I can put 9 in the ones place. 7 hundreds, 7 hundreds is in the middle, that's weird. So do I put the 7 here? No, because it's a hundreds. So I'm going to ignore the 700s for now, and I'm going to come back to it later. Let's go up here. It says 10 tens. We have the same problem again. I cannot put a 10 in the tens place. The highest number I can put in the tens place is a 9, but 10 tens are actually going to equal one more hundred. So this is 7 plus 1, which equals 8, and I have to put my placeholder 0 there and 8 there. So my answer for number 3 is 809. Number 4, I have 12 tens, 5 hundreds, and 8 ones. Let's deal with the ones first. So 8 ones, it's only one digit. Put my 8 there. 12 tens and 5 hundreds. So I'll deal with the tens next. 12 tens. I cannot put 12 in the tens place because that is 2 digits, and I can only put 1 digit in the tens place. So now I need to look at this and I need to regroup it. Well, I know that 10 tens is going to equal 100. So right here I have 12 tens. So if I take away 10 of them, I'm left with 2. So 12 minus 10 is 2. So that means if I've taken away 10, I've got to take those and regroup them into here. So I'm going to add 100 here. So now I have 2 tens left that I can put in the tens place. And I've got to take my 5 and my 1 and combine them together. And that gives me 6. So my answer is 628. So that is just a review of some place value. Hopefully you've drawn 4 more of these sections because I'm going to show you another board in just a second, and on that board you'll have 4 more problems written out that you'll need to solve. Pause the video now if you have not kept up so you can finish doing 1 through 4. Okay, here are problems 5 through 6. You're going to try this now on your own. I believe in you. You can do it. Remember, you don't need to copy these down. What you need to do for each one of these is to create a hundreds, tens, and ones chart and write the correct number in each one. If you finish these and you'd like to send me a picture of your work to show your great practice of your 2nd grade skills, then please feel free to do so. I'd love to see the work that you guys do. So here are your last problems. Make sure you pause the video long enough so that you can do all 4 on either a piece of scrap paper or on a whiteboard if you have one, or on a laminated piece of paper. I actually saw something cool today online. If you take a piece of cardboard and cover it completely with that clear packing tape, like a really good clear packing tape that's nice and thick, then you can actually use that as a whiteboard as long as you cover all the parts of the cardboard, and you can make your own whiteboard at home as long as the cardboard is like clean and there's no printing and stuff on it to make it distracting. So like the inside of a box where there's nothing on there. You could even use like a cereal box or something else with a bunch of tape over it. So go ahead and work on these 4 problems. I will pause the video now so that you can finish them. Okay. Hello, for today's lesson in our math journal, we are going to be doing pages 202, 203, and several other pages as well. So a few other pages as well. So to prepare for the lesson though, we actually need some materials, and the materials we need today are a 1-inch square piece of cardboard. I also need a centimeter square piece of cardboard, but you don't. You just need a 1-inch square piece of cardboard. So what you need to do is find any kind of piece of cardboard. It could be the corner of a box. It could be like this. I'm using an old business card that I don't need anymore. So I'm going to measure with my ruler. I don't have a ruler at my house, so I'm just using this measuring tape. And I'm going to measure 1 inch by 1 inch, and I do that by marking 1 inch off and then coming on the other side and putting the line for 1 inch right there and making another mark. And then I can take any kind of straight edge, anything I can use as a straight edge. I'm just going to use one of these postcards, and I'm going to draw a line. I decided to color my card before I cut it. I'm using the corner because in the corner there's a right angle right there, and so I know that I'll make a square if I use the corner. So now I've drawn my lines to make a 1-inch square. It's not going to be perfect, but it's pretty close, and you're going to need one of these 1-inch squares in order to do our math lesson today. If you cannot get yourself a 1-inch square for whatever reason, ask an adult to help you. But if you cannot get this made for yourself, then feel free to skip this part of the lesson and just do some of the extra practice pages. I also need a 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter square. I don't have a thing to measure 1 centimeter, so I'm just going to estimate and make something close. So I'm going to use this tiny 1 centimeter square to demonstrate for you guys, and then you guys are going to practice with your 1-inch square. And I'll finish coloring this in now. So then I have one purple 1-inch square. And you can also color yours in too. Use some crayons that I threw in your bags, or the colored pencils, or even paint your cardboard with some watercolors. Whatever you want to do. So here's my squares for our math lesson. Make sure you have your squares ready. Pause the video until you get yourself ready. And you only need this. You don't need to make one of these. This is not important for you. You just need one 1-inch square. I'm just going to show you some examples with this one. So just make yourself a 1-inch square to use for our lesson today. Alright, to start out, we need to open up to page 202, and I'm just going to use 202 to demonstrate. You can help me answer these questions, and you can draw and follow along. For this one, I'm using my 1 centimeter cube. You don't have a 1 centimeter cube unless you made one, but you don't need to worry about having made one. So I have my 1 centimeter cube, and the goal is to completely cover rectangle A and to completely cover rectangle B. And we are actually, as we're doing this, we're making what is called an array. This word is called an array. It's spelled like that. So an array is when we repeat the same shape and we have columns and rows and they're organized. So this array would actually show the multiplication problem. It has 3 circles here times going across. I count the same circle at the top again, 4 circles, and I would multiply 3 times 4, and my answer is all of the dots. So I'd count everything up, including the ones I circled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that helps me to learn that 3 times 4 equals 12. So if you're ever trying to solve a multiplication problem, you can draw an array by doing the first number you can make rows, and the second number you can make columns, and then you fill in all the dots between the row, in each row and each column, and that gives you your answer. As long as there's equal numbers of dots in each row, in each column. So you can see that each of these rows has 4 dots, and each of these columns has 3 dots. So that is what we call an array, and it's how we solve multiplication. So today we're going to actually work backwards. We're going to use our 1 centimeter cube, and I'm going to try to cover see how many times I can cover. So I have 1 centimeter cube, so in order for me to do this, I'm going to draw and trace it each time. I'm probably only going to do rectangle A. And each time I cover it, I make sure it's not overlapping, and I can trace around it. Okay, so these aren't perfect, but you can see I fit 1, 2, 3, 4 going down, and then let's see how many we can fit across. 1, 2, well, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Sorry, I know that's really hard to see, so I actually fit 6 in there. And then I want to keep going until all of my rectangle is covered. So you have to make sure that you don't let it move around too much while you're tracing it. You guys are going to be doing this with the 1-inch square, so it'll be a little easier to do than this 1 centimeter square, which is so tiny it's hard for me to hold it. So again, tracing this 1 centimeter square until I have the whole rectangle covered up. You're going to try your best on this. You can see these are not perfect lines. I'm not doing a perfect job. I'm not even 100% sure that I cut it perfectly. I'm just trying my best. So there we go. So now we have our entire rectangle covered in 1 centimeter squares. And then our next job, just like we did when I showed you this one, is it says how many rows of cubes are in rectangle A. So rows means this way. It's a horizontal direction. When we count rows, we count side to side. And then it says how many cubes are there in each row of rectangle A. So they're also asking how many there are in each of these rows. So we're going to also count that. So first, let's count our rows. How many rows do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So how many rows of cubes are in rectangle A? 4. How many cubes are in each row in rectangle A? So let's just count one of the rows and say how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 squares in one row. So then it's asking how many altogether, how many squares did we use to cover rectangle A? It's saying cubes because we were supposed to use those ones, place value ones things, but we're using squares. So how many squares did you use to cover rectangle A? And I'm going to count them all now. So I'm going to count every single one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So total, there are 24 squares covering rectangle A. That's how many squares there are altogether. So actually, just to hint you for 3rd grade, the math problem, the math fact that we would do, the multiplication fact, is 4 times 6 equals 24. So that's what this rectangle, that's what this problem is actually showing us. It's showing us multiplication. So then it says do the same thing with rectangle B. I'm not going to do that again because we're going to move on. Like I said, we're not doing everything in lesson 6 and we're not doing everything in lesson 7. So now we're using a square, 1 square inch square, and you're going to do the same thing with this huge rectangle C on page 203. So you're going to start with your square, and you're going to hold it up in the corner, and you're going to trace it, top and side and bottom, and then I'll move it down and trace it. And keep doing the same thing until you get to the bottom. Okay, and we're going to go across and keep going. So I'm not going to continue to show you how to trace your squares, but you want to try to keep your rows as even as possible. And you can see here it's a lot easier with this larger shape. I'm using my thumb to hold it down and my hand to trace. So this is not as hard as the other shape was because it was so tiny. But this is a bigger shape, a bigger rectangle. So we keep going, and you're going to keep doing this until the whole rectangle is filled with squares. So you're going to go all the way across, you're going to all the way down, all the way everywhere. You're going to fill it out. Don't just do in the middle. If you do in the middle, you're not going to end up with an array. You're going to end up with a mess. So you can't just like go over here and start tracing it. That's not going to work. You have to keep going and stay in the same column or row that you were in and cover it all the way. This is not something you can rush. You might have to take your time. You want to do it as neatly as possible. So bring out those neatness skills that you've been hiding all year and do your best to cover the whole rectangle. Then you're going to answer the same kind of questions that we answered before. It says, how many rows of squares are there? Remember to count the rows. We count this way. And then we answer here. And then how many squares are in each row? And we would count all the way across to figure out how many squares are in each row. And then finally, we would count all together how many squares are there all together. So when we're doing this one, we're going across. And when we're counting rows, we count down, and we count the rows going down. Okay? So that is page 202, page 203. Next, you'll see that right before that were some Math Boxes pages. Make sure that you have finished your Math Boxes pages this week. There's one for 8.5. We skipped 8.5 lesson, but you can still do the Math Boxes. On the next page, there is some more practice with the exact same skill. You're going to keep using your 1-inch pattern square, and you're going to keep measuring just like we did. So here's more practice, continuing practice with the same thing. So you're going to also do page 204, 205 as well. There's a lot. I don't expect you to do it all in one day, but you're going to keep working on those. And there's even more in lesson 8.8-7 with the same exact skill. Nothing different. So there's all those pages where you can practice doing the pattern block, taking your square, and measuring each one and figuring out how many are there all together. There's also some math on page 208, just some addition. Again, I don't expect you to do it all in one day, but I'm not going to be covering this in a future video. So just so you know, you could do everything in 8-6 and 8-7. Work as long as you feel comfortable. Then we are going to talk about 8-8 a different day. So we are done. So any page up to page 209 can be done before the next video, or even after the next video. But any of those pages can be done on your own. If you have any questions, definitely check in with me at Zoom time. Zoom time again is at 10 and 2 and 4 on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So you can check in with me tomorrow. And that's it for math today. We're just doing arrays and figuring out how many squares we can fit in each of those big shapes. So I hope you can have fun with that. Again, have a great day. Good work. I love that you guys are checking in through the videos and you're following along. Send me pictures. Also, when you're done with these, you could color them in. You can make a pattern like going across the top. You could make it each row one color and the next row a different color, and have fun with it. So enjoy and have a good afternoon.